Okay, so today we're going to talk about stateful components. So as usual, I have an app, a React app running. So as we said on the previous workshop, this is a stateless component, and now I'm going to create a stateful component. So basically, I'll talk about state later. So we're going to create the stateful component first. So I want to create a component to count the clicks a user makes. So the way to create a stateful component, the syntax is like this. You start with class, then you put the name of the component. So let's call it clicks count. And then we have to type extends and then react.component. Okay. And then inside we need a method that is called render, which is a function that is going to return our JSX. So in this case, let's make a div. And hello stateful components, the component. So I have an error here. Yes, because I don't have a return. So we need a return. Then inside we put the JSX. So now it should be rendered. Yes. Just delete this. Okay. So we check now. We have hello evening class, but I have this component should start by capital because that's the convention for components. How do I make this appear on the screen? Do you know? So I have this clicks count component, but we can't see it, right? We should be seeing hello stateful component. Do you know how can I render it? So in the app component we have to render it, right? So we need to put it somewhere. So let's do this. Now here we just render the clicks count like this, and now it should be on the screen. So here it is. So that's the way to render a component. So the stateful components have another function that is called constructor inside. This function is going to initialize things. So for now, let's say, I'm going to introduce a state already. So what is a state? State is data that is local to the component that changes. So it's the way that we can track user interactions. So without state, you can render things, but they are going to be static. They are not going to be moving, like they are not going to react to what the user does. If you want that, you need state. So the way to initialize state is, so I need here this super method, it's called like this, and then this is just a boilerplate, so a code that we need to put in order to make it work, and then this dot state equals, and let's say, so it has to be, let's make it an object, message, and let's say hello from state. Okay, so this is the initial state. So the constructor function is going to initialize things. So this state is the initial value of the state before rendering anything. So once this component is being used, the first thing to run is going to be the constructor, and then afterwards we are going to render what we are saying to render here. So now I want to render the message on the state. So do you remember how to use JavaScript inside JSX? Well, class name was for the CSS to make a class, but to use JavaScript inside React, we need to open curly braces, and then we can type the JavaScript as usual. So now we need to access this value, right? So the way to do it is type in this dot state dot message. It's the name of the property state. So let's make it an H1. I want to render it inside a title. Okay. Now format this a bit. Yeah, voila. And yeah, hello from state. So this message comes from the state. So then also in stateful components we have something called lifecycle methods. Okay, so I'm going to introduce the most basic one. So it's called component did mount. So this is going to perform some action after something happens. So as the name says, it's going to do something after the component is rendered the first time, only once. So once the component renders, it's going to do something. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to create something called a timeout that after some time is going to display a message on the screen. Okay, so it's called set timeout. And then inside we need to pass a function that is going to do what we want to do. And I want to, you know, this annoying windows, pop-up windows that open with a message like your computer has a virus or something like that. So we're going to make something similar. So let's say your computer has a virus, and it's going to explode. Okay, so we need now to set the timeout. So we have the function, and then we put a comma afterwards with the time in milliseconds. So 3000 is 3 seconds. So after the component mounts in 3 seconds, we're going to have an alert with this message. So let's see if it works. Oops, sorry. So let me refresh. Wait a second, let me count. So 1, 2, 3. So, and you can see it because I can zoom that message, but it says your computer has a virus and it's going to explode. So that's the alert. Okay, so now instead of that, what I want to do is to change the state. Okay, because when the user makes something on the screen, I want to store it on the screen, on the state, sorry. So I want that again after 3 seconds to change the message. Instead of hello from state, let's say, I don't know, hello, good evening. or I don't know, good evening, if good evening, like that. So good evening. But I want to store it in state. So how do update state? So we need to use this function, set state. Not like this, sorry. This.set state. Then inside we need to pass an object. So the curly braces, because we are in JavaScript already, means that is an object, okay? And then the objects have a pair of a key and a value. So if you see it here, for instance, you see we have this object that has a pair of key and value. So the key now that I want to update is message. So I'm going to type message, and I want to change it to good evening. After 3 seconds. But I need to somehow display this somewhere, right? I have it here already. So perfect. So let me just do this. Okay. So now in 3 seconds, you see, this changed to good evening. So after 3 seconds, the message is going to change. Good evening. Okay. So what I want to do now is a bit different. I'm going to create a button, and this button is going to count the clicks on the state. Okay. So do you know how to create a button in HTML? So, okay. Sorry? Almost. Button. Yeah, button. So instead of hello stateful component, we'll just type button. And then on the middle, we put the text that we want to be inside the button. So we say click me. So if we check now, we have this button that says click me. And now, instead of having this message changing, I want to say clicks count, colon, and then I want to display the number of clicks. Put it here. So I need to get the clicks from somewhere, right? So now on state, I want to initialize a property that is count. So let's type count with an initial value of what? What do you think should be the initial value? 0. Yes. So I have the initial value 0. Then here, if I want to access that property in state, I have to do like I did before. So the name is this.state dot what? What should I put afterwards? Count. Very well. Okay. So if we check now, we have. So let me just make it different. I'll put it inside a p tag. Okay. So now clicks count 0. And what I want to do now, I'm going to show you how to do it, is when you click, this is going to increase. So in order to do that, we need to create, so we need to listen for an event, and the event is the click. And the way to do it is by typing on click, like this, and then we need to pass a function here. So like we did with the component did mount, now we need to create a function that is going to handle the event that we want to check. So let's delete the component did mount. We no longer need it. So let's do count clicks. Okay, like this, like a function, and then inside we are going to update the state. Do you remember how to update the state? How I did before? So it's this dot set state, and then inside I have to put an object, and then so the name of, so what's the name? So count, right? Count, and then the new value, right? And the new value is the previous one plus 1, right? So how do I access the previous value? So basically I have to do like I did here, right? This.state.count, right? So this.state.count plus 1. Oh, sorry. Plus 1. And yeah. So now this function is declared, this method. Now I have to use it here. So this dot count clicks. Then I'm going to show you something. If I put it like this, it's not going to work, because you see, yeah, because on the stateful components, this is basically really annoying, something very difficult. It's one of the most difficult things to understand in JavaScript. So that's why since last year, apart of for some other reasons, we have another way of doing it. But I want to show you this way because it's the way that is still most used in many companies, and it will be maybe until 2 years from now, because I don't know, changes take time to be adopted. So to make it work, I need to wrap it into a function like this. And now it should work. Oops, sorry.
Sorry, can you say that again? So if it's a stateful component, it needs to be wrapped in a...
So yes, because of the this, so we need this function to use the this. It's a bit complex to explain. I would have to run 2 or 3 workshops just on that. But basically, if you type it just straight away, it's not going to work, because the this that this function is trying to get the data from is wrong. So to make it right, we need to do this. We need to wrap it into an arrow function, and then we need to invoke the function as well. So now it should work. Yeah, so 1, 2, 3, you see? Okay, there's another way to make it work. So I can make, so this is called an arrow function, okay? So I can make the arrow function here. Count clicks equals, and then an arrow like this, and yeah, this should work as well. Yeah. So if I invoke it here, I'm going to show you what happens. So maximum update depth exceeded. This can happen when a component calls set state inside blah 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 blah. So basically saying that we are on an infinite loop. So why? Because when you update state, in order to reflect the changes, so sorry, we are updating it here. In order to reflect the changes, it's going to render again. Okay? Each time we update state, then this method is going to be triggered. Okay? And because when we are triggering, we are invoking this function again, then we are updating state again. And when we update state, then we are going to render again. And then we are going to update state again. And like that forever. So that's why we get that error. So in order to avoid that error, we just don't invoke the function. And this function is going to be invoked only when we click. Okay. So now you are going to help me to I'm going to create another button to decrease the count. Okay? So you are going to do it. So how can I do it? What should I type now? I want another button.
Copy the line above.
So I put button, yes. And okay, and then inside, let's say, so this one is going to be increase count, then this one decrease count. So what else? So now if this is right, I'm going to have two buttons, increase and decrease. So what else should I do now? So on this button we had also this, right? So this is going to listen for the clicks, right? Yeah. So I type on click, and what else now? Equals curly braces, this, and now I need another function, right? Yeah. To decrease the count. Another function, or I can make this one dynamic. So I'm going to show you how to do it. So count clicks, instead of count clicks, is going to be update count. Update count. And here we're going to say, how should I call it? How do I call it? Click. Either, oh sorry, we don't have it. Either on the button increase count or decrease count. I don't know, action or number, or okay, let's call it number for now. So update count number, and then I have to do this.state.count plus number, and then I can use this update count here, and then when I invoke it, I'm going to pass the number that I want. So this one, in this case, is going to be 1 because I want to add 1, and in this case it's going to be update count -1. Okay, but now I think we are going to have the problem we had before, right? Yes. So I need to do the other way. I need to create an arrow function here like this. Okay, because otherwise we are going to be updating state, rendering, updating state forever. So
if you put that next to number though, where it says up in line 11, would it still cause that problem?
If we put it next to number here?
Yeah, you know, like you did equals parentheses equals
parentheses equals
You know, like you did it before. You
here,
had it
this?
up here.
Yeah. Yeah, I can change it. So yeah, like doing this, right? And then delete the arrow. So inside the parentheses, I pass the number, right? Is this what you mean?
No, it's okay, don't worry. I was just thinking, you know, like last time you had it on those buttons, but rather than putting it there, you put it up there on line 11. The parentheses.
So this arrow function? Yeah, I had it already. Like, yes, sorry, because I did something and I didn't explain it. That was my fault. So what I did, so before I had something like this, like, and then I have an equals here, right? But then, because I'm going to pass the number, I can pass the number here, right? So this is the parameter that I'm passing into the function. But because it's only one, I can actually delete the parentheses. Oh, sorry, it's equivalent. So that's what I did. But it was still the same thing. I can do either this way, I can do like we did before. So this is called an arrow function. This is a modern way of creating functions. It's from 2015. Before this, the only way to do it was like this. Yeah, basically this. And then I need to pass number here. Yeah. Okay. And yeah, it's equivalent. So if I check now, it's going to increase the count, and then decrease count is not working. Let me see what's happening. So when I click on
click, it's got a lower C in it.
exactly, yes, very well seen. So if I click now, yeah, so it works now. So yeah, so to summarize, stateful components have state. Is the way to interact with the user, to store the interactions of the user on the component, and the way to do it is we need to initialize it on the constructor, and then we update it by using this function, this.setState, and then inside the object that we want to pass. Okay, any questions about this?
Is this sort of thing covered in the CodeFlix?
Yes.
And in the React?
In CodeFlix and also in the React training, both.
Okay.
So if on React Intermediate, you have a topic only for state. And then on, I don't know if it's task, I think it's 15 or 14 in CodeFlix, you need to use state as well. So yeah, if you keep doing the tasks, you will do this. Yeah. So any other questions? Did you understand this? Yeah. Okay. So I'll leave it here.